Hi everyone. I just wanted to hop on here really quick and give y'all a little update regarding my MRI. A little background. After my autoimmune hepatitis diagnosis via liver biopsy, I saw the liver specialist and he confirmed that I have autoimmune hepatitis. There was a little bit of a question about whether or not it was medication related. The pathologist had thought it like a medication reaction type of hepatitis, autoimmune, which kicked in my immune system. Sorry, my immune system, and made it attack my liver because it saw a foreign invader there. We still don't know if that's the case or not, but because of the research of the medications that I'm on, the liver specialist doesn't think so at this point. I'm not on anything that notoriously can elevate liver enzymes. And these enzymes started elevating before I was really on very much medication. I am on more now, but still those medications aren't liver toxic, so to speak, or should not cause an autoimmune response. So that's where we were at. Because my alkaline phosphatase was elevated, has always been more elevated than my AST or ALT, the doctor just wanted to be sure that we weren't missing anything in the biliary system. Because typically when you have an elevated alk phos, as they call it, it's usually coming from the ducts, your bile ducts in your liver or outside your liver, around your gallbladder, and then the common bile duct that goes into your small intestine that feeds the bile down from the gallbladder as needed as you eat fat. So he just wanted me to have more imaging. Since my ultrasound of the abdomen was almost 2 years ago, he wanted to see more. And even though they did an ultrasound when they did my liver biopsy, it was just for guidance only. There really wasn't any report on it. The radiologist didn't say what he saw in the ultrasound or not. So he just wanted some more well-defined imaging, which ultimately some of the most well-defined imaging you can find is an MRI. And so he wanted me to have that. So I decided I would move forward with that. I am going to say I have a hard time with imaging because there's a PTSD aspect of it regarding what Ron went through. We never got a good report on anything that Ron had scan-wise or x-ray-wise. It was always, they always found something new or different, and it was always cancer. So again, while I know that, that most likely I didn't have cancer or anything, there were some irrational fears, and I tend to get really anxious and can make myself very anxious about these things, worrying ahead of time about it. I am not scared of the procedures. I was not scared to go in the MRI machine. I don't have claustrophobia, so to speak. So the fear wasn't of the procedure. The fear is what the report will be. And granted, I typed radiology reports for years, and MRI reports. That was one of the last specialties in transcription that I learned. So, none of this is foreign to me, and I'm at home in a hospital or a clinic or a radiology clinic as I would be anywhere. It's just after the last 2 years with my dad and Ron and my brother that scan reports scare me. Again, totally irrational, I know. But I was doing pretty well up until early last week, and I started scaring myself. I went to Dr. Google a little bit, even though I know to go to the more reputable NIH, the different research organizations in Mayo and Harvard. I know to go to those people and not to go to the obscure places on the web to try to get medical information. But still, even though I know it's not a good idea, I still did it. And so again, the doctor just wanted to be sure I didn't have I didn't have an overlap syndrome into my biliary system. And that was scary in of itself, because the biliary autoimmune diseases called PBC and PSC, and I won't get into the weeds with what that is and the differences. The differences are subtle, but there are differences. I was more in the demographic to have PBC. PSC is usually seen in people who have Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, both of which I didn't think I had. I have an iron constitution in my stomach. I've never had a lot of stomach problems, never had a lot of bowel problems, but yet when I went to functional medicine and had all that workup, a lot of the studies that the functional medicine doctor did kind of pointed toward inflammatory bowel disease. Again, I have no symptoms, but I started looking up, and there is such a thing as silent inflammatory bowel disease. Go figure, just add more to the paranoia that I was already feeling. And again, I know I wasn't doing myself any favors, but I try to reassure myself by researching that, I don't most likely have these diseases. But the more you dig, sometimes the more confusing it gets, or the more you can convince yourself you've got something that you don't. And so I kind of worked myself up a little bit. And I also had a very busy week, and working, I went to Brevard and was helping my mom with some financial things and doing more work on Dad's probate, but I was out of my routine. And when I'm with my mom, she watches a lot of TV, and I don't watch a lot of TV. I watch some, but I'll just get on my phone and just start doing what I shouldn't do, and that's just looking at things that scare me. So, it started my week off on an anxious start, which I knew what I was doing. I kept telling myself to stop, and I eventually did. But still, I'd already worked up the anxiety about the MRI in my head, the what ifs, And I mean, I was almost to the point of, I was on that line of, am I going to live another 20, 30 years, or am I looking at maybe 10, and even less maybe quality of life? So I feel like I was just worked up, feeling like my life might be over, or coming to an end soon. And I don't want it to come to an end soon, even though I trust God that when it's time for me to leave, I'll go. I'm just not ready yet. I still got a lot of things I want to do, and a lot of people still depending on me, and I just want to be here. So to get down to the MRI, I went yesterday at 4 o'clock. Turns out that they were behind. Anytime you've got a later in the day appointment, you can almost count on the fact that they're going to be behind. That's why I try to make my appointments early in the morning. This wasn't possible. This is just a very busy clinic, and pretty much when they call you and tell you have an appointment, that's your appointment. There's really not any working around it unless you want to really put your appointment out for several weeks. And I didn't. I wanted to get it done. And so I went, and again, I'd had one MRI in my life on my brain several years ago. I had some unexplained seizures that were just real intermittent. Maybe once every year, once every 18 months, I would have this weird passing out spell. And nothing ever came of it. They did not diagnose me with epilepsy because They, number one, they didn't want to put that label on me, but my seizures were so few and far between that, that they just didn't want to put that label on me. And I didn't have to take medicine. Ultimately, the neurologist said, well, sometimes people's brain has to reboot because they're under stress. And I do believe it was a stress-related syndrome. So I'd only ever had a brain MRI, and I actually had that in an open MRI, not that I requested it. It just worked out that way. And it was fine. They found one spot on my brain, but it wasn't anywhere that would cause a seizure. It wasn't MS. It was actually maybe I had a very traumatic birth, and to the point that they told my parents that I could have what do you call it when your brain is damaged at birth? Not cystic fibrosis, but cerebral palsy. Because they had to resuscitate me when I was born, and they were worried that I was without oxygen too long. So they found one little spot on my brain, but it wasn't anywhere that would have caused me to have seizures. So, I don't have cerebral palsy, so I assume my brain just made up for the fact that the damage was done, and I had not had a stroke or anything in between. So anyway, that's the only experience that I had with MRI. This was different. This was a closed MRI, and it was fun. It really was fun. Again, I don't get nervous about the procedures itself. I get nervous about the outcome. And so I went in, very nice people, very nice technologists that walked me through the whole process. Much newer technology than 15, 20 years ago when I had my last MRI. And, I just went in and I just started asking Jesus, Lord, I know you got this. I know it's in your hands. And I was so peaceful. I always am when I actually get to a procedure. I'm usually pretty chill. And I have a lot of my anxiety is anticipatory anxiety. And that's what I'd been dealing with last week. But went in, just said a little prayer. And it was kind of funny because, they're loud. MRIs are loud and have all these weird noises. And they put an IV in. I had part of the study was with contrast. And but I actually almost started laughing because it was loud, and one thing would sound like a hammer, one of the noises, and then one of the noises sounded like a rubble strip on the highway when you go over there. It just kind of sounds like that. And I'm gonna stop and put this back in because I'm doing this with my headphones today, and